photo editing video for you, and just to sort of practice and see what happens. So I pulled up this image, and this is, typical of what I might send you. And then what I do is try to do everything in the same order every single time with newborns. So newborn editing is very systematic for me. I do the same thing every time. So the first thing I want to do is work on the baby's skin color. And I do that to begin with the Action Set MCP Newborn Necessities. And the very first thing I do always is use Paint On Red Baby Fix. And I run it at 30% opacity. I play it. And then I get this window that pops up, and it just tells me to run it at between 20 to 35%. And I click stop on that, and then I have my brush. And I can change my brush size, as you know, using the bracket keys. And careful to avoid the lips, I remove the excess red in the little newborn's skin, wherever that might be. And newborns, babies always have places where they have excess red, especially above the lips, and I always avoid the lips, and often on their feet and on their chest. So I've removed the excess red. I often save each step in between, but you don't have to. Then I scroll down to the next one, Paint On Jaundice Fix, which is for the removing excess yellow. Sometimes babies are very jaundiced, have a lot of yellow in their skin. This baby doesn't have a lot. So I just remove where I see maybe some little excess yellow. And then I go to Paint Gray Skin Fix. And what this is for is sometimes when you remove excess red, it's not so much on this one, but sometimes when you remove excess red, the skin becomes a little grayer. And you need to just sort of warm up the skin so that it looks healthy in those areas where you've removed a lot of red. But this baby isn't too gray, so I'm not going to do very much. So there I've corrected the three things with skin: Paint On Red Baby Fix, Paint On Jaundice Fix, and Paint On Gray Skin Fix. Then the next thing I do is scroll to my Action Set Florabella Workflow and Retouching. And I add light if I need to add light using the reflector brush. So this baby, I needed to get more light in the baby's eyes. And I want to keep wraparound light. I don't want the light to be too flat. But in this case, I just needed to put a little more light in the baby's eyes. You can kind of see that's sort of nice. But I want to keep the shadows, where the shadows are. I want it to look like it has a natural light source. And still, put light where I need it. So I like that. Sometimes you don't need to do that. Then the next thing I do is work on the baby's eyes. And I go using the same Action Set. If the baby's eyes are open, I whiten eye whites. So I'm going to go to Whiten Eye Whites. Get it bigger. Sorry, I have a little bit of a cough. And then in the maybe at 40%, somewhere in there, wherever it looks good. I just whiten that white part. And then I go to catch lights, brighten catch lights, and where the reflection is in the eyes, the little catch lights in the eyes, I use the brush and I brighten those. And I think this makes a big difference. So I brighten the eyes. Then when I have the image large, I look to see if there's any like digital noise. Those are the little black spots. Sometimes they develop and happen in the shadows, or if I've underexposed the image in the photo session. Sometimes I get digital noise in those areas. So I'm going to use the tool Noise Reduction Brush if I have that problem. And this takes a bit of a while to run. And in your action set, the noise reduction brush will be in a different place. I moved it here because I use it along with eyes. Just going to remove some of that digital noise in the shadows. If I have it. Usually I don't have it. But I picked an image to show you that had some problems. Then I'm going to use Quick Sharpen Lashes, and I'm going to sharpen up the eyes. I often will run this at 100%, and I sharpen up the eye area. And then sometimes the nostrils and the lips. And then if it's too much, then I go to my opacity on it and I dial it down. But I didn't think it was too much, so I'm going to keep it at 100%. And then you can see I often save the work in between steps because they're a lot of work and I don't want to lose my saves. Then I'm not going to show you how to do this because you already know how to do this. If there's any like little skin problems, like, you know, here there's a little bit of excess red. Sometimes babies have a little bit of scaling on their skin. I usually leave that, but I do correct sort of blotchy areas. You know, like they scratch themselves. Sometimes they have little baby acne, like here's a little piece of baby acne and here is. I think I would just use your judgment and fix what you think the mother would want fixed. And it's going to vary with each baby. So you would fix that. Then I go to the action set Little Pieces Workflow. Oh, I'm sorry. I go to the action set Little Pieces Beautiful Skin, and I run the action Beautiful Creamy Skin. And when I do that, it says to paint on at 100% opacity and then adjust layer opacity to taste. I hit stop. I'll follow that advice. I'll run this at 100%. And I just brush on, avoiding the lips and the eyes and the hair. And what this does is it's softening everything. Sometimes I avoid the, you know, the lines of the skin. I'm just painting the skin. And I rarely leave it at 100%. It's too much because, as you can see, it's flattening it. It's deleting all the shadow that I want. I mean, I want the shadow. I want it to look like a nice, natural wraparound light. But this does kind of make the baby skin a little smoother and more creamy. I don't always use it, but it also kind of helps to even out even a little more the skin tone. But see, it's deleting some of the shadow, and I don't like that. But I'm going to smooth it on over everything. And then I'm going to go to the opacity on it, and I usually dial it all the way back down to 0. And then I just dial it up until it looks better, which I think that does, which is at 35%. But it just depends baby to baby. Then basically the last thing I do is go to the next Little Pieces action set, Little Pieces workflow, and I run soft warm wash, and I play it. Pardon me. And you can see it here in the action set, and it's two. It's white wash and soft warm wash. I go to white wash, I change the opacity, I dial it down to 25. I do it the same way every time. I don't make choices on this. It keeps my work really consistent, and this is an important last step. Then I go to soft warm wash, and I dial it down to 15%. So I dial it to 25, half of 50% on whitewash, 50 to 25, half of soft warm wash from 30 to 15%. File and then save. And then if the baby looks a little bit too flat to me, like not enough shadow or not enough sharpness, then I flatten all the layers like that. And I run in the same action set, add some contrast. I play it. And then it added a little contrast and sharpness, but it's usually too much at 60%. So the same thing, I dial it down, and then I dial it up until it starts to look good to me, which it does there. And then I'm going to file, save, and then I notice that I've got a little white spot in the blanket. I'm going to go to layers. I'm going to flatten all the layers. Go to my clone tool, run it at 100% opacity, and clean that up a little bit. Okay, and there's my final edit. And I would save it maybe, or you'll save it as an F. And let me show you before. Oops, that didn't work. Oh well. I'll send you the image. So that's how you do it.